Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Talk of Tuckahoe. I'm your host, Paul Votano, and we're coming to you today from the beautiful Alex and Henry's Roman Gardens right here in Eastchester, and we'd like to thank our hosts, Mario Fastini and Nat Racine, for their hospitality today. My guest is David McKay Wilson, a political reporter, staff writer for the Gannett Suburban newspapers, and his beat is the County Board of Legislators. And welcome to the program,
Thank
David.
You. Nice to be here.
David Wilson is a native of Hartford, Connecticut. He has been a working journalist since 1977, starting with a paper called the Boston Phoenix, then covered the City Hall beat for the Cambridge, Massachusetts Chronicle from 1978 to 81. From there, he moved to Connecticut and freelanced for a couple of years, working with, among others, the New York Times and the Boston Globe. It's pretty good papers to have on your resume. Did that for a couple of years. Then worked for a weekly called the New Haven Advocate for another couple of years. Everything's in increments of 2 years here, until he gets to Westchester, folks. And then in 1986, he moved here to Westchester to begin working for Gannett and covered White Plains, the city of White Plains. That must have been pretty exciting with the mayor at that time.
Oh yeah, we had our struggles.
And the Common Council there, of course. And then moved over to cover City Hall in New Rochelle in 1988. And then in 1990 through 1992, you were the State House correspondent for Gannett in Albany. And the last 2 years, you have covered politics and the County Board of Legislators. David lives in Tuckahoe. He's a village resident, having bought a home here a couple of years ago on Oak Avenue, and has spent the last 2 years renovating.
That's right.
That's about pretty accurate, isn't it?
That's right. This year we put in the garden.
All right.
The outside this year, big flower garden in the front.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, David, let's get right to it. The first item that I'd like to talk about is something that concerns you yourself, as well as maybe 165 other families or so who were affected by this proposal that Metro North has laid on us to build a third track between Mount Vernon and Crestwood, which hasn't sat too well with anybody who lives alongside the tracks right now. So what's the latest on that, and what's being done to stop it, in effect?
Yeah, well, the latest on it is that a number of the village officials in Bronxville and in Tuckahoe are trying to get the federal government, which is going to be funding the project, to do an environmental impact statement to study the impact of the entire project, including these walls that they want to put up to stop the noise. It's now in the hands of the officials in Washington to actually decide whether they should do this extensive review of the project. But that's only the first stage in a whole number of things that have to happen. So I think the village officials are waiting to see. They've gotten support from the state legislators and up to the senators. Moynihan and D'Amato have, and as well as the Congresswoman Lowy, have all come out saying that they need to do this environmental study. And the residents, I know on my street, are concerned about the wall and the, going up and back and graffiti on it. And, so I think that's, it's kind of in that stage now. The one place though where it's they haven't really been concentrating on it yet, which will become a battleground in the future, is the piece of parkland that they need. Metro North needs this piece of parkland down by one of the bridges in order to put in the third tract. But in order to have this piece of parkland be used, it has to go through the County Board of Legislators, for one thing, and then also through the state legislature. So those are two places where there will be lobbying at those, where the local elected officials may be responsive to the...
Is that parcel that Kay Karski and Andy Albanese have been pushing for as parkland?
No, that's another piece that they've gotten approved as parkland near the Revlon property.
Yes.
But this is a little piece of that's already county parkland with the part of the Bronx River Reservation that's near one of the bridges that the track goes by. And this has to, in order for the plan to go through, Metro North needs to get this parkland to be used for the track project. But it must be approved by the state legislature and the County Board of Legislature for this to happen. So that's something that conceivably could happen next year. So it's still several years away.
Would this be something that at some point the entire state legislature would have to vote on?
Oh yeah. In order for, you see, New York has one of the strongest protections for parkland in the country. That once a piece of land is deemed a park, then in order to use it for any other purpose besides park purposes, you need an act of the state legislature to do it.
Okay.
So, and then in order for the county, it's a county park, the county legislature also has to pass, they first have to pass a piece of legislation saying that, asking the state to do it. You see, this is one of the same issues that had to do with the David's Island project, is that there was a piece of parkland there that they wanted for the bridge that was on part of Glen Island Park. And that was another spot where they never got to that point, but that was another point where the lobbying of the public could be effective, because you're not, lobbying a developer or Metro North, which is an authority that is not as responsive as, say, an elected official may be. So this is seems to be an area where the elected officials that I've seem to be where they're down the road will be concentrated. Just a little piece of parkland, but it's an important element of as the thing plays out.
But just to reiterate, before the state legislature votes on it, the county has to approve it.
County Board of Legislators.
So that could possibly be killed right there.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Because going back to David's Island, I mean, that thing kicked around for about 10 years before they finally said to Xanadu, we'll see you around.
Right. You see, and that never got, that actually got stopped at the state level. That it had to pass the Secretary of State, the Coastal Zone Management law, but it never got to the County Board of Legislators, and that was going to be another fight there, and it was uncertain whether that was going to be passed, because certainly the chairman in New Rochelle, he wasn't too keen on that.
It got to a point where, as I remember it, and I happened to be working with the County Chamber of Commerce at the time, which was behind the Xanadu proposal, they thought they were going into a meeting with the City Council of New Rochelle definitely in their favor, and they get there and the rugs pull right out from under them.
Well, that whole issue there really showed the power of the citizenry. They were very well organized, the environmental groups, and they really did their homework. And they organized, and they were able to raise enough questions about it, and the public policy decision was made on the state level that they didn't want 50-story buildings out on David's Island. They didn't want a bridge to go across Long Island Sound in that spot. And now it's interesting that Donald Trump has now surfaced as the latest savior for, and we'll see what they've had a lot of suggestions for that island.
He's talking about a ferry which had been rejected years ago by the citizenry there.
Well, it's the ferry. I think it may be the only way to go, though, because I just don't think they're going to be able to get the bridge to go out there. Whether the city council wants to allow 20-story buildings out there, and how much of it's going to be reserved for parkland for the public in general, are really the key issues that will. It's going to be an interesting thing the next several months, because you also have the county. The county making this proposal a few weeks ago to buy it. Out of nowhere, we get this proposal.
Well, we've had the county coming up with, in fact, this is a pet subject of mine. They made a proposal to buy Memorial Field in Mount Vernon, and that looked pretty good. They were going to renovate it, and they were going to have maybe minor league baseball, and bring back the football bowl games and all kinds of things. And then all of a sudden, the city of Mount Vernon, which looked like they were ready to, give it up, now they say they want it. They don't want to sell it. So where are we on these things?
Yeah, well, I think that's an interesting example of, again, with the officials in the county making a plan, saying, hey, we want to be a modern county, minor league sports. This is kind of the upcoming thing. We can improve this. But then you have the citizen, the people who actually live in that neighborhood. That's a residential neighborhood down there. It borders on a commercial neighborhood, but that's a nice middle-class neighborhood in Mount Vernon. And many of the residents down there that I've spoken to, they're concerned with the traffic and the parking in the neighborhood. And also, you see, they kind of have possession of that now. There's not much that goes on there, but they run around the track. There's a track down there, and it's kind of theirs. So, and it's also the other thing, I think, on the county level, is that it's not going to come cheap. The county wants to put $6 million of taxpayers' money. They want to borrow $6 million to do it. In addition to that, they have to buy it from Mount Vernon. And this is a issue of contention right now, exactly what the price is going to be. That's more than 10 acres there. And Mount Vernon, that's going to be at least $1 million, maybe more, that they're going to pay Mount Vernon.
My understanding was if the county bought it, Mount Vernon would have first crack at any activities there. So, that's not a bad deal, because right now the thing is just a seedy, awful-looking place.
Well, and half of the stands are condemned.
Condemned, absolutely.
And it really could be a showcase for high school sports.
Great location. Can't beat it.
Although, they tried this thing with the baseball there. They tried the baseball up at the community college. This was another one of the county's proposals out of nowhere. Oh, we're going to have baseball. Well, that ran into citizen opposition.
But that wasn't handled too well. I mean, they did it like in about 3 days, let's do this.
And then they attempted to then try to do it at Memorial Field, and the fellow, this Jay Acton, he's a entrepreneur from Yonkers, and he couldn't take the heat. The people up in Greenburgh were fairly well organized, and they were very insistent in not wanting it, and then he tried to go down there, and the people asking him the same questions, and he walked out. So it's there's a tenuous balance in this county because it's so densely populated, but there's also so much money here, and there's a lot of money to be made, and the county also needs money. So it's a delicate balance that you.
Well, it's good news that we heard that MasterCard is coming here. They should really merchandise the heck out of that, because it's been a long time between 40 coming to Westchester. But let's turn our attention to probably the hottest race of the year, maybe anywhere this year, and that's the gubernatorial race here in New York, where really one of our own looks like he will be the Republican candidate, Senator George Pataki, against Mario Cuomo, who is now everywhere. And everywhere you look, there he is. So depending on which poll you look at, it looks like Pataki, without having done anything yet, is right in there.
Yeah, well, he has a he has a serious chance. He does have a primary against Dick Rosenbaum, and
Yes.
I think Rosenbaum is going to dirty him up. He's going to portray Pataki as a right-wing zealot who's out of touch with what the mainstream New Yorkers really want. I think Pataki's got a very good shot at winning the primary, and once he gets by that, he has a shot at beating Cuomo. If you look in the states around here, Cuomo was kind of in the situation of Florio in New Jersey, where he's been around people. There are many people who don't like him intensely, and Pataki, of course, is kind of the unknown, as Christy Whitman was not that well known in New Jersey, but she was an alternative, and people will vote against people as much as for them.
Well, I think also we are now in the age of the anti-incumbent. I think that's rampant throughout the country these days, and Mario Cuomo was right in there. I mean, the guy's had 12 years, and a lot of people, I think they would have had a shot at him last time, the Republicans, if they had put up any kind of a decent candidate. Pierre who, I mean, this guy was the 19th choice that they put up, but I think this time it might be interesting. But as you say, Pataki's got to get past the primary. Rosenbaum is a shrewd guy.
He's a shrewd guy.
He's a Rockefeller. He made Rockefeller, or helped to make him.
But
he hasn't been around.
You can't count Cuomo out, because Cuomo
by no means. Yeah.
He is a marvelous
Absolutely,
politician,
yeah.
and he has the power of incumbency, and he has the power of the purse strings in New York.
Yeah.
And you
Big war chest too.
He's got a big war chest. He's been raising money, and there's going to be some announcements of some state grants in Westchester. They're going to start popping out later this summer and into the fall, and he is Cuomo's a fighter.
Oh yeah,
he's a fighter.
Absolutely.
And he's going to be out there. He's not going to take this sitting down.
Your colleague Milton Hoffman had an interesting column as we're taping today in today's Gannett papers about what Cuomo has done with pensions for the unions and so many other things that he's going to be signing into law that to engender himself to a lot of people.
Well, he's got a base that he has to get out. He has the union people, the dyed-in-the-wool Democrats. He has in New York City. New York City is half of the state's population, and he has got to energize those people. He's got to energize the voters in New York City, the minority vote, the labor vote, and Pataki could win the rest of the state. But if he loses New York City by huge margins, then that could be it for Cuomo. And that's why Westchester is really going to be a battleground, because Westchester is a swing county now. There's more Democrats than Republicans.
Right.
But the Republicans can win, as we saw in the last county executives race, where Andy O'Rourke pulled out a victory. Several of the judges won victories in Westchester. So even though they're outnumbered, they have their voters are loyal, and they come out. So it's the Democrats have to energize their people. And
well, let's swing over to your almost daily beat, I guess you would say, the County Board of Legislators. It's no secret that the county executive, Andy O'Rourke, and Stephen Tenor are on the list of don't invites if you're going to have a party. These guys have been feuding, I guess, ever since Tenor took over as chairman of the board. What's the problem there?
Tenor, and you see, Tenor is a very shrewd politician. He's a very shrewd politician. He's good. He's good. And he has been able to cobble together an alliance with the Democrats on the board, so that he's able to put together a unified front against O'Rourke, so that they've really set themselves up as a stronger opposition. Even though Tenor is a Republican, as is O'Rourke, he's been able to set up a strong coalition of people that can get in, that can stop O'Rourke's plans. They came out unified against this baseball plan. They've on the budget, they overrode his vetoes on several items of the budget. They They've been battling over this youth funding that they put in the budget, which that was an example of where the Republicans and the Democrats got together. That was ostensibly a Democratic issue, money for kids programs. Well, you can say it's Republican, but it's more of a typical Democrat program. And he was able. They've put this in. They've been fighting O'Rourke on it, and I think that Tenor, he likes the game. He loves the game of politics, and so he likes the back and forth. The fight over the medical center is another example of where although they've had a bit of a truce on that now.
Of course, he's a young guy. He's an attractive looking guy. Could he be looking down the road toward the big nut, the county executive? I mean, O'Rourke's not going to be there forever.
He's not, and Tenor, of course, will say that he's not.
Well,
but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he's a young guy.
Right. I don't think he's 40.
I don't think he's 40 yet. He's in his late 30s, so I would not be surprised if at some point he would run. So
yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to follow. Speaking of running, any other hot races that we should be looking at this year?
Well, I think the most interesting one is the fight to secede Hamilton Fish up in the 19th Congressional District. This is in a district that stretches from White Plains up into Dutchess County. And currently we have 7 Republicans who are in a primary and 3 Democrats, including Fish's son of the same name, Hamilton Fish Jr. So this is going to be one of the top congressional races probably in the country, and one of the most expensive. So far, the candidates there have already raised $1 million. So it's going to be several $1 million is going to be spent to try to convince the voters that that they're the best thing. There's some very wealthy people in the race. The former chairman of the Westchester Democratic Party, Dennis Meehl, who resigned his post to run this year. He's a wealthy. They got a real estate developer, Paul Buca, who's already loaned his campaign $250,000. So we're talking about some big money. But it's interesting, in the Republican race, with 7 people in the primary, any one of them could win with just playing to their constituency, carving a niche out in the district, and pulling their vote in the primary. So it's that's really going to be the top race.
When is the primary? September?
September. Yeah, it's September.
So is there any chance of there'd be a winner in each of them? Would there be anybody that might emerge as an independent if he didn't win? Or
well, you're already the interesting thing in that race is that you could end up having 3 or 4 people on the ballot. Joe Diaguardi, the former congressman from New Rochelle, he is running in that race. Joe has already gotten the Right to Life Party line, so he's on the ballot. Right to Life Party. Then you have
is Joe going to become a perennial candidate?
Well, Joe wants to go back to Washington.
I guess so.
He tried to come back last time.
Was he moved up there? I mean,
well, he says he's moving.
Oh.
You don't have to live in the district to run. You just have to live in the state. You have to move there after you get elected.
Interesting.
But Joe put up a fight against Lowy last time.
And he's got money too.
He's got some money. He's got some money. But the interesting thing is that you also have in that race a Conservative Party primary, but that's only between Buca, Joe Diaguardi, and Guy Parisi. So one of those 3 could win that race. Somebody else could win the Republican primary.
Oh, boy.
So you could end up with 4 candidates, which is what the Democrats want, because it's a Republican district.
Right.
So that's what the Democrats have their fingers crossed, that you have a different, they call it the trifecta there. You'd have 3 Republicans all on a separate line, split the Republican vote, and a Democrat would squeeze in an area that's a Republican area.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, anyhow, a while back, as we were talking before we went on the air, I had interviewed on this very program Terry Anderson, and of course Terry has headed up a an organization now determined to have term limits in this state, as you well know. What's your take on whether term limits are going to see the light of day someday?
I don't think they're going to see the light of day anytime soon in New York. New York, in order for that to happen, it'd have to go through either state legislature or the county legislature. You see, New York, unlike other states where they have initiative powers where you can collect signatures and put a question on the ballot, they don't have that in New York. So you need an act of the state legislature to do that. Now, I don't expect the state legislators in New York to do that. Let's take Westchester. 4 out of the 13 have no opposition this time, including 3 of the state senators. So I don't think they're going to give that away. Now, in the county board of legislature, there's a move on now to get something on the ballot this year. But I don't think the people who are pushing it actually alienated a bunch of their supporters recently at a meeting when they presented their reasons to do it, which was basically that the voters weren't really intelligent enough to tell the difference between the candidates. Now, that didn't really go over too big with the legislators, and it kind of it made some of them back off. So I don't really expect to see anything soon on that.
Hey, it's a funny issue. I don't know where I stand on it. At times I say, yeah, that's a good thing. At other times I think, well, you know, this guy or this lady is doing a good job. Why? And then, hey, we have term limits. It's called an election. You know, so that's how you get rid of people in a democracy. So I don't know. I tend to agree with you that it'll be a long time coming.
Although, and another interesting aspect of it is, though, here you had this congressional race. Here we had in the 19th Congressional District, Congressman Fish had been in for 13 terms. He wasn't going to, he got ill and decided to step down. Now, all of us, look at the competition we have there now. So people will say, geez, you know, this is a positive thing to have this kind of competition in the political arena, which we really hadn't had for many years up there. So it's a tricky issue.
I've talked to some people over time who have said, why the heck do we have a county government anyhow? There are a lot of places in this country that have absolutely no county government. Sure. It's just like a lot of states that don't have lieutenant governors, you know.
Sure.
I think New Jersey just started to have a lieutenant, or is it Connecticut, I think, perhaps, that just started to have a lieutenant governor, whatever. I mean, how many people can you walk down the street and say, who's the lieutenant governor of the state of New York? Who's going to tell you? They don't know. But as far as county government is concerned, we all have municipalities that we pay taxes to.
Sure.
We have towns, we have villages, and so on. What would be, you know, it's the largest employer in the county. In Texaco, bigger than Philip Morris, bigger than Nestle, you know, you name it. So there alone is, you know, big government again. Why do we need a county government? What would be your
Well, I
argument
think the
on
county government provides a kind of regional government that I think plays an important role in New York. Now, before coming to New York, I was in Connecticut. Connecticut did away with county government. However, Connecticut is a much smaller place. It has a population of 3 million. It's only 169 towns. It's a compact state, so that when you, for example, when you talk about welfare, that can be coordinated by the state. In New York is a huge state, stretching as far as Buffalo. And people, I think, would feel that to have the that the county bureaucracy, although it is big, gives a kind of regional accountability that may not be there with a massive state government. Westchester County government has also fulfilled several roles over the years that may be hard to give up. We have the park system here, which is a gorgeous park system.
that it is.
So when you have the medical center, and so there's a number of important things that they do. Now, there are some things that you do. You wonder, like, why does the county government have to run an amusement park? for example.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good one. That's a good one. I've never quite understood that, but it's a tradition here.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
1928 when they
Right.
founded it. So, but I think the major reason is that it provides this kind of regional focus that people can concentrate on and can funnel the services through them.
I don't see it disappearing.
Oh no, it's not. It's a very strong constituency out there.
Absolutely. In the minute or so that we have left, of course, Governor Cuomo has suggested that we finally put the death penalty on a referendum basis, which a lot of people considered a ploy on his part. But nevertheless, do you think it'll get on the ballot?
No, his proposal has virtually no chance of getting on the ballot for two reasons. One is that the legislature is out of session and probably won't come back into session this year to put it on. The other is that he's proposed a question. He's not just saying, do you support the death penalty or not? He wants a multiple choice question on the ballot, which is highly questionable, saying, well, do you want the death penalty, or do you want life without parole, or do you want it the way we currently have it? Which, from the people that I've spoken to, said that is, he's not, you can't have a question, you can't have multiple choice on the ballot. You need yes or no. And he seems unwilling to do that. So I don't think it's, he has proposed it before. So it wasn't, when he mentioned it a few weeks ago, it wasn't a new position of his, as people tried to make it out to be. But his position that we have a multiple choice question on the ballot, I think, showed it to be the political posturing that he was doing on the issue to which he's vulnerable. Polls have showed that a majority of New Yorkers believe we should have the death penalty. Pataki is on the side of the majority in that, and I think he's feeling the heat.
Well, David McKay Wilson, I want to thank you very much for being our guest here on the Talk of Tuckahoe. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it very much. You ladies and gentlemen out there, we trust that you've enjoyed the program, and we hope to see you all again next time. I'm Paul Votano, saying so long for now.